just want to kick it off. We'll introduce everyone shortly, but first I'll tell everyone what we'll be talking about. Um, the title of this Twitter space probably says it, covers it. We're going to talk about use cases of cryptocurrencies in underrepresented regions. We got a group of experts today here to explore the potential of cryptocurrencies to promote financial inclusion and drive economic growth. And we're going to talk about the benefits, but also the challenges of crypto adoption in countries around the world. We're seeing a lot of problems in the U.S., but how are things faring in the wider world? Um, yeah, we're gonna explore how crypto can, play a role in unlocking economic opportunities for individuals and businesses across the globe. Personally, I'm very excited for this one because just a little bit of personal background. My mother is from Argentina. Argentina has always dealt with a bad case of hyperinflation, and that's currently very much so. Um, and I caught wind of a lot of people going to crypto in Argentina. There's very wide crypto adoption, much more so than other countries, because people want to have access to stables. This is not something new. People have always used dollars in Argentina for like big expenses like rent or buying like new furniture, buying a house. But now crypto comes into play. So that's very, very interesting. I also think, it gives relevance to crypto because it's a very clear use case, and it touches people's lives potentially in very significant ways. It means economic inclusion also and growth unlock. So that it's not purely altruistic as well, but if you could unlock, the economic potential of a whole suite of people that, that are not really part of the global economy right now, what would that mean for everyone involved? And also, I think finally, just like a positive impact of crypto, besides just like number go up and ape JPEGs, wouldn't it be nice if we could, you know, change people's lives in significant ways? Um, so yeah, we're gonna talk about all those things. I hope everyone's excited. I certainly am. And I want to give our speakers opportunity to introduce themselves. Um, just a bit of general background of who they are and what they do, and also how they relate to today's topic specifically. So yeah, whoever wants to take it away, feel free.
Hey, maybe I will go first. Thank you so much for inviting us to join you this evening. We recently recorded a podcast episode with Drew, who's also here as a speaker tonight, for his crypto altruism podcast, which is so good. We're based in Switzerland, and actually, I really love this topic, and it's something that is really important to us because I think that crypto really does have the potential to be more than just an investment. It has really the potential to change lives. And basically, what we are all about is about facilitating easy off ramping of crypto. And we are completely fully regulated here in Switzerland. And we have a DApp that you can connect to through any crypto wallet. And then you can, once you've onboarded with us, you can set up your preferred bank account. And then all through our DApp, just with a few clicks, you can easily off ramp to the bank of your choice. And soon we will be able to provide people with a Visa debit card so that they can spend the crypto anywhere that Visa is accepted. So that's my introduction, and I'm really excited to be here and to participate. So thanks again. Thanks.
Cool. I'll go ahead and hop on next. want to start off by saying thank you so much for proposing this topic for the space. I mean, I've been in Web3 only for about a year and a half, so feels like no time at all, but also a lifetime. And in that time, I've just become, I think, acutely aware of how different the perception is and the use cases and just what crypto means to people in the Western world versus emerging economies around the rest of the world. And so, for my background, I was born in Romania, moved to the US when I was pretty young. And so my perspective here is mostly from the US. And I'm sure there are people here who are much better off to speak about what crypto is like in other parts of the world. But about 6 or 7 months ago, when I started realizing that there is such a different approach to crypto outside of the Western world, I started just having conversations and interviewing friends of mine from places like Nigeria, the Philippines, Venezuela, and really what they see behind crypto and the hope there. And so was really excited to get on the space and honestly hear from the other speakers here who I'm very excited to learn from. Um, my profession is I do freelance Web3 product management work. So right now I kind of sit in the middle of this sea of different Web3 agencies, and right now working with a few really big enterprise companies who are making their first forays into Web3, building out their first Web3 products. Last year worked with companies like Shopify and Gucci. Right now working with one of the biggest whiskey companies in the world to launch their first Web3 program, and have a couple other projects in the pipeline that, again, are a little bit more of the Western take on crypto, which is much more around kind of like NFTs, customer loyalty, things that are much more nice to have than actual, I think, needs that crypto can serve for most people in the world. But yeah, that's me. I'll pass it off to the next speaker.
I can jump in. Thank you for hosting the space and for the introduction. So my name is Drew Simon. I'm the founder of Crypto Altruism. We're a content platform dedicated to shifting the narrative of crypto and showing the world the good of crypto and the good of Web3. So we've had about 250 blog posts, I think, at this point. We're coming up on episode 100 of our podcast, which Karen from Fiat24 just mentioned. We had the honor of interviewing her recently on our podcast, so make sure to check that out. So what we're focused on, like I said, is showing the world the good of crypto and how Web3 can be used to drive social impact, to help nonprofits advance their missions, those sorts of things, but also how it can be used to address some of the world's most complex challenges, including financial inclusion for those that not only are unbanked, but also underbanked and underserved by the current financial institutions around the world. So really excited to dive into this topic, and I do have to apologize in advance that we'll have to hop off at about the 35-minute mark, but I'm excited to dive into this really important topic. So thanks for having me.
I can go next. So my name is Nene. I'm based in Vancouver, Canada. I'm originally from Ghana. My background was in or is in TradFi. So I spent some years in retail commercial banking, and then moved on to a AI fintech startup that was solving small business lending issues there. And then now I work for an AI research lab for one of the largest banks in Canada. So I'm a little bit on the other side, but I'm also sort of a Robin Hood for the good side, because on the other side, I'm building a Web3 focused neobank for the African diaspora, and also for those who are on the continent, and trying to bring the benefits of crypto to that side of the world. Um, Part of my reason for being here is because I mentioned I'm from Ghana, noticed a pattern of hyperinflation that's kind of really destroying the financial futures of young Africans. And to be honest, recently in the news, if you've heard, Ghana defaulted on its bonds, which are likely or largely known as risk free. And again, if you think about what that means for the benefits of leverage and compounding for young um, people in one of the fastest growing regions in the continent, you start to see the benefits of how crypto can combat this. And so um, I became a believer, I think, about 3 years ago. And now I'm trying to build that bridge to go from just a fiat centric investment landscape into a more crypto forward version for the future. So excited to be here.
Hey, yeah, last one. I'm on-chain data nerd, so I basically, make a lot of dashboards and like reports on on-chain data that people find interesting. I went to the same high school as Nene. I'm also from Ghana, and yeah, kind of got that context. So I find it really interesting to think about how crypto is so much more useful where I'm from than it is anywhere else in the world. And like that's something that doesn't get represented a lot on crypto Twitter because most of the people on crypto Twitter are from, the US or the UK or some other country like that. So yeah, I think it's interesting.
Wow, that's that's crazy. You guys went to the same high school. One Nene was giving his introduction and talking about Ghana. I was exactly thinking like, oh my God, Kofi did some threads about that situation specifically, and had a lot of interesting things to say. Um, I'm gonna post those in the highlights as well as from everybody else. I'm sharing highlights. So to the audience, definitely check those out. These guys got a lot of interesting stuff to share on all of this. Um, so yeah, thank you for those introductions. Uh, let's start, getting into the meat of the matter, as they say. Um, I think it would be nice if we already touched on this, obviously, and people are probably familiar with, some of the use cases within this context. Uh, but I think it would be nice if we start off talking about like the most important benefits and more so also like specific examples. And those can have like, please make those examples of cases that you are specifically familiar with and that you have experience with or that you have seen firsthand or up close at least. I'm thinking like international subscription payments, protection from hyperinflation, or even installation against authoritarian regimes. Um, whoever uh, feels like taking it away, please do so.
Yeah, I'd love to kick us off and just say, like, I think far and away the biggest benefit is this simple value of being able to just escape or get out of the financial institution that you were born into. Like, you don't decide what country and what currency you're born into and forced to use. And, people who live in the US or in the EU, like, we really take for granted that, we don't really care about other currencies because ours is like the main freaking currency. But that's not the case for like more than 90% of the world. And the fact that people are locked into those financial ecosystems, which in many cases, like we've talked about, are hyperinflationary. They just don't have a lot of hope or like long-term prospects, especially for these younger populations. I mean, when I talk to some of my friends in African countries about places like Ghana and Nigeria that experience hyperinflation, there's just no hope of like, why would I hold on to this currency? Why would I invest it when it's just not going to get me anywhere for the future? And so simply having this other option that is outside of the purview of the ecosystem that you are, just lucky or unlucky to be born into, I think that to me is like one of the biggest value points. Would love to hear what other people think.
Yeah, I think that's really a great answer, Luca. I have to really agree with you. Watched a video with Mark Armstrong from Coinbase who highlighted that millions of people who are unbanked. And I think, like you said, in the West, I think we're all quite well served. We have Revolut and we have stable currencies. And I think for a lot of people that I know, crypto is just like a form of investment. They don't necessarily want to spend it or do anything except like just invest or hold it. But actually, what Bitcoin, I think the real purpose was to create this digital asset that is really decentralized and it doesn't is not controlled or owned by a single entity, and that's very powerful. So, yeah, I love your answer.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in maybe and share something. You know, as I've interviewed quite a few folks about financial inclusion, and a topic that a case study that I found to be very effective to kind of showcase the real world implications of Web3 and financial inclusion is looking at smallholder farmers, because they can really impact or be impacted by Web3. It kind of, no matter where they're at, if they're unbanked, underbanked, underserved, it kind of touches on all those different pieces of the spectrum of being unbanked or underserved. So, for example, many smallholder farmers are in rural, remote areas that lack access to basic financial services. So they struggle to, find things like capital and to have a place to store their funds in a bank account that they get to invest their funds, to get access to credit, those sorts of things. So that's one piece of the puzzle. And to address that, there are Web3 projects that are providing banking services to smallholder farmers, that are providing access to capital through crowdfunding, through peer-to-peer micro lending, from folks on the other side of the world that can lend money to smallholder farmers in need. There's a blockchain project called Etherus that's providing decentralized insurance to smallholder farmers. So a huge thing for farmers is crop insurance. So if there's an extreme weather event like a flood or something, it can wipe out your crop yield and destroy your livelihood. And these events are unfortunately increasing and increasing as climate change becomes more, obviously, the impacts of that are seen. So it's typically something that's unaffordable to smallholder farmers, especially in the global south. So Etherisk is providing decentralized crop insurance that's tied into oracles that automatically reads extreme weather events and processes payouts to these farmers. So it gives them access to these tools that they didn't have access to, whether it's insurance, access to capital, access to credit, access to financial market tools. Web3 has the potential to kind of help in all those different areas. So I find that to be a very effective case study for kind of exploring how Web3 can really drive financial inclusion in really every sense of the word.
Yeah, I think those were amazing points actually, and just to kind of add on in terms of a case study. So I think Kofi mentioned we went to high school together, but we both went to high school in Ghana. And at the time, I think just before then, 2008, the exchange rate between the Ghanaian currency and the US dollar was 1 to 1. And if I were to ask any of you here, I'm sure you wouldn't be able to guess where it's at right now. But it reached 1 to 15, I think, as of early this year. Right. And if you think about that, you might not really say, well, maybe they're spending in their own local currency. But the part of it that is terrible is that, well, majority of items that local Ghanaians spend is imported. And so you have imported inflation coming over. And the fact that you can lose, say in 2008, if you had 1,000,000 cedis, which is the Ghanaian currency, and $1,000,000, you'd have been 1 to 1. And by making a decision just to simply converting your money to US dollars, you could be worth 15 million Ghana cedis. Or if you held in Ghana cedis, you'd be worth less than 100,000 US dollars. It's pretty mind blowing if you really think about it. And then to even add on to that, for just last year, there was a instance where essentially the government defaulted on its bonds. And if you're also very aware with African investment portfolios, most of it is in government bonds. Most people are not used to equities and some of these more advanced economy investment vehicles or asset classes. And so most people lend money to the government. And just here we have it where now, because of the default, you've got a case where people cannot pull out their money until around 2027. But they're not earning any yield on it. And if you try to pull out money, it's marked to market at almost 60% of the value that you had put in on there. So when you really start to think about this, and I think there was a point made earlier on in terms of the fact that you were largely born into this situation. You didn't get to choose. And one of the beauty or the benefits I see of crypto is leveling the playing field, in that I can spend in Bitcoin and I can transact in Bitcoin. And this is global, right? And so it's not just because there's some arbitrary um, differences in my currency and yours, which can ruin my business, which is largely healthy. And I think that's part of what's driving the mission with our team here, because I mean, it makes me a little emotional sometimes because just looking at the position of people there who seem to have who can't dream anymore. There's no space for innovation, and it's largely due to factors out of their control.
Yeah, I mean, I think you summed it up pretty well because, yeah, I don't think that most people in other places really understand the kind of the value in having, yeah, just a system where you can that you can rely on in the sense of you can deposit money whenever you want, you can take money out. That's kind of taken for granted in places like the UK and the US, but you can imagine what the feeling can be like for, say you worked as a professor at the University of Ghana for 40 plus years and it's time for you to retire and you've been saving all your life, you tried so hard and all your money was in bonds. Today, yeah, you're just not getting that money. And, that's outside of your control. Nobody could help you with that. And, previously wasn't really an option for you to kind of self-custody your funds in the way that crypto is trying to help people do. And yeah, I mean, that's like a very, depressing example. But even the more lighthearted examples are like pretty shitty. I mean, Helix, when he started, he was talking about online subscriptions. Something as casual as like, paying for Spotify, Netflix, Amazon, or whatever it is. You can't really do that in most places in the world. I mean, Ghana has its own problems with international payments, but there was this thing at the end of last year. The Nigerian central bank basically cancelled the ability for people with Naira cards to make international payments because the central bank wasn't holding enough foreign currency. So yeah, they say you had a business that you wanted to order something online, or even if you just wanted to listen to Apple Music or whatever. Suddenly, your bank card, which is the same bank card, it has money on it. You suddenly don't have the ability to do that. Whereas, the crypto is pretty trivial to, if you want to pay anybody anywhere in the world instantly, that's just the default inbuilt feature that like causes no trouble at all. But for a lot of people in a lot of places, it's really hard to get money to somebody else who's in another country or vice versa. But it's kind of interesting nowadays. There are all of these services, like there's one called Bitrefill and such that allow you to pay for all of your online subscriptions and things like that if you have crypto and you're in a place where you couldn't kind of make that payment with your bank card, which is really awesome. I mean, back home, most people don't even have bank accounts. Most people have mobile money, which is kind of when you put money on your mobile service provider. And yeah, there's like an interesting new like way to interact where like people can buy crypto with mobile money and then use Bitrefill to like pay for stuff internationally. And it's just kind of having other options, I think, is really what it's all about. It's not so much about completely replacing the existing financial system with crypto or anything like that. But it's just having options so that in places where, depending on where you're from, your system is failing you, you can choose to use something else, is I think what makes it interesting.
That's really very interesting, everything that you just said. And actually, when I think about it, it is actually quite sad that these issues exist. But do you think that, as a question to you now in return, do you think that maybe because to use wallets or crypto or some of the dApps, or there is kind of a learning curve, I think. Do you think that's something that is going to be like a very big challenge, or do you think we can maybe work towards finding a way to simplify it more, because I'm also interested to know in what we could do. So yeah, that's my question to whoever wants to answer this.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely
Okay.
can be easier. There are lots of steps in between, like wanting to get involved in crypto in some way and actually having a wallet that has funds in it that you can use to interact with some apps. So it can definitely get easier, but it's I think it's interesting to see that even right now, when it's a 6-step process, people still figure out how to use Binance and how to onboard themselves and do all of that. So I wouldn't say it's I wouldn't say that it's like a total barrier, but it's kind of like one of those things that hopefully only gets better, right?
I want to jump in real quick. We have another speaker, um, Shapeshift, Shapeshift in Espanol from the Latin American continent. Um, Love to add a bit of that flavor to the conversation as well. So either jump in whenever you feel like it's a good moment, and you can definitely introduce yourself. We just wanted to give that quick primer. Um, yeah, I also want to keep it going. Um, very interesting conversation so far. It's funny that and this came up before that it's true the a lot of these benefits that we're talking about here seem like very trivial to us living in the Western world, but in places like bringing up the example from Argentina again, like I know a person personally very close to me who sent all their life savings to Argentina to their family, and because banking wasn't a big thing at the time there, they had to take out that money in cash, and that person actually got robbed. So somebody's life savings got obliterated in one moment, just because there's a lack of financial institutions, of banking, of good money payment and transfer systems, and it can lead to really tragic things. Um, yeah, just wanted to add that there. Would love for Shapeshift to come in the conversation as well.
Hello, Alex. Hello, everyone. Thank you for the invite. Here is Joanna. I'm from Puerto Rico. I'm living in Paris, in France, and I'm community manager for Shapeshift DAO. For those that don't know about Shapeshift, is a decentralized exchange aggregator, and we started in 2014 as a cryptocurrency platform for Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies then, and we evolved now in a DAO. So we've been working on LATAM growth because we know that there is a lack of access to decentralized exchanges and other services. We have a multi-chain wallet, and what our main goal is to have more accessibility for this kind of tools, because most of the centralized exchanges doesn't have access. For example, our sisters and brothers in Venezuela needs to use a VPN to access to crypto to cryptocurrency services. And also, for example, we in Shapeshift we used to have our platform in on IPFS, so our brothers and sisters in different countries that doesn't have access to crypto could use it through our infrastructure. Another thing that is worth to say is that has in the example of Latin America, we have high rates for interest in loans. We don't have credit cards, so for example, I have a friend that is Marcus. I will share his project now here in the comments. Marcus is an Ethereum Foundation fellow, and he's been working on Latin growth, and he's trying to get a loan for a car to get a car in Guatemala, and they have 20% of interest rate. So he's doing a DeFi strategy to get that loan and have access to a car in Latin America, because the system is not working. We cannot rely on the system. So this is two of the main concerns on how we can use crypto to give access to other to most of the regions that are in 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 stress. So for me, is accessible infrastructure and also accessible DeFi tools to have more access to credits and loans and resources at the end of the day. And also, in talking about Argentina, we have members in our community in Shapeshift Latam that doesn't use they prefer to use cryptocurrencies as a way of storage, of value storage. They don't use it for the day-to-day life, because what they want to do in local economy is to get rid of their Argentinian dollars. So these are the kind of problematics that we see day to day, and what we're discussing in Africa, in Latin America, and as a Puerto Rican living in Paris, in France, I see that the 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 difference of the adoption, because we use crypto in Europe as a commodity, but in other countries, in regions that are stressed, we use it because we need to rely on a system that gives us more opportunities and more resources. So yeah.
It's very cool that you brought up Marcus. He was actually invited, and he actually just joined the space as well. Also joining is PCW. So yeah, both of you also feel free to jump in whenever you feel like, and do introduce yourself first if you'd like. Hey Marcus, good you made it. Thank you. Good to have you too, PCW. And Joanna, you touched on a great point where I would like to take the discussion next, which is, of course, these benefits that we're talking about are great, but of course there are also certain challenges yet, you know. One thing you mentioned is access. There might also be other things at play, you know. Basically, the question is, and I would like to know from you guys as well, kind of like experts on the topic, or at least you're very familiar with it from a personal standpoint. What do you see as current barriers? You know, why isn't the adoption in these places as good as it might be, given that the benefits to them would be huge?
Well, I would just like to jump in real quick. I'm sure everyone has some really great answers because all the speakers here are just really fantastic and I'm enjoying this a lot. Um, but yeah, I just think from what I've seen, I think that for now, wallets are not super easy to use. Maybe with account abstraction, it will, and smart wallets, it could be easier. So to get rid of the seed phrases or to have introduce social recovery or guardians, that could help. But I mean, even for myself, when I first started in the space, I didn't feel like it was super simple to use, or also sometimes maybe you feel a little bit afraid, like, am I really sending this to the right place? So I think there has to be a lot either of education or to work into the UX and simplify the processes, hide the tech a little bit to for more adoption. So yeah, that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I wanted to add on to that. The biggest, I would say, obstacle that I've heard in conversations with people from around the world is honestly very similar to the problem that we have with crypto in general, is just the fiat on ramps and off ramps. I mean, one of my friends who I was talking to in Nigeria, the government essentially, like, in some manner, illegalized the main platform that people are using to on ramp their local Naira currency. onto crypto. And when that happened, like the way that people who, granted, who already were aware of crypto and wanted to continue accumulating it, they literally had to find group chats or communities of some sort, and find essentially like local crypto whales that they could send their own like local fiat currency to and receive Bitcoin or Ethereum in exchange. And of course, this came at a massive premium. Of course, this is not something that is done through a well-structured financial process. So that means there's like always the risk of, hey, you send them some fiat and they don't send you the crypto back. And it just amazed me the lengths that some of these people were going to just to continue building up their crypto reserves. And not only is this just normal crypto reserves, but it's also like in the middle of this bear market. Like we're talking in the last like year or so, people doing this and still wanting to be involved in this ecosystem because they see it as more hopeful and a greater store of value than their local currency that they're being tied to. And I think anywhere in the world, like even as we look at how the US is trying to regulate cryptocurrencies, those on-ramps and off-ramps are going to be a tough call because right now the main crypto use case, right, is storing that value as we've mentioned on the space so far. But I think the next step is how do we make this so that it's actually usable for people in a day-to-day context? Like it's great to be able to bank someone who's otherwise unbanked, but in most economies, it's very difficult to actually use this crypto to pay for literally your food, your shelter, your bills. And that's something that I think the biggest obstacle in the way there are these on-ramps and off-ramps, which I'm excited to see some people in the space building specifically for those use cases.
Yeah, I was gonna add a little bit to what you just said. I think there's like regulatory challenges that are over there. So part of our the challenge for us as we've been building has been that there's a clear directive from, say, the Bank of Ghana and I think even the Bank of Nigeria, where they've explicitly said, the and I think it's sort of invalidating depositor confidence, right, in crypto. And it's like, well, do it at your own risk, or we are not mandating the use of any of these platforms. And so you already have that part where there's a lot of lack of trust in the system. And the other side of it is, and I think this was mentioned a little earlier in terms of it is a bit complicated for people who are not necessarily I don't want to say technically oriented or technology forward, right? And the jargon is heavy, right? Even for technical folks, right? And so I think there's a lot of work to be done in the simplification space where we really abstract away and we build a lot of user friendly front end things that essentially help people send, receive value, right? And they don't necessarily need to know about the hashing or what is really going on in the back end. I mean, they can know about it if they want to, but I don't know. Sometimes people, and I am a product manager, so that's partly why my lens is there. But you need to be able to put this in a way that is user centric, and I think that is one of the major barriers. On top of that, too, you've also got like internet access and a bunch of those other fundamental needs that we need to, again, think for, and essentially planning and working around offline versions of this. Because, for example, on the African continent, there's a huge push towards USSD, which is like, when you use text messaging. So it's like first people have wallets on their phones, and so building integrations that allow for that to also be sort of feasible in areas that don't have that much access to internet or that's strong connections and stuff like that. So I've said a lot, but these are certain considerations I think we need to have when we're building for some of our regions.
Yeah, I mean, I think that everybody else has kind of brought up the most common problems, which is just like how do you actually cash in and cash out in the first place? whether or not you can even understand what's going on. I mean, I think one of the, the other big barriers is, of course, kind of the matter of security. So there's an analytics site that I contribute to part-time called DeFi Llama that, tracks a lot of stats in the DeFi space. But one of the pages I maintain on DeFi Llama is our hacks page, where we keep track of all of the hacks that have happened in DeFi. And I mean, if I just opened up my page right now, actually, I'm not sure what number we're on now, but I'm pretty sure we're above. Yeah, we're above $6 billion having been stolen from DeFi apps since, kind of stretching all the way back to 2017. And that's a lot of money. $6 billion, actually $6.5 billion to be precise, is a lot of money. And it's one thing to lose money because your financial system is corrupt, or people made kind of the wrong decisions, and it's another thing to lose your money because you entrusted it to a smart contract that wasn't secure. So there's definitely, as much as the intention behind a lot of protocols is kind of, I believe, the right intention in terms of allowing people to interact with financial services trustlessly without having to jump through any hoops or give up any personal information. The actual implementation is where the problem comes in, because of course you need an implementation that doesn't have any mistakes, or it could be hacked. And obviously, we're human and mistakes do happen. So there's a lot of progress to be made there. And I mean, that's just on the front of talking about security from the perspective of people building apps that other people use, and how do they make those apps secure so that people's funds get stolen. But of course, there's the other side of security, which is, the attacks that are made against individuals directly. I have this newsletter where I keep track of the smart contracts that are growing in usage, growing in the number of active wallets that are interacting with them. And so every few weeks, I kind of scrape through all of my Dune queries to see what's been growing. And it's actually kind of depressing sometimes to see the number of contracts that have insane user growth, and you're excited to check what it is. And it turns out to be some MLM scam fraud scheme that's just and actually it's kind of impressive sometimes, to be honest, to see some of these scams that literally you see them onboarding, say, 100,000 wallets that have never interacted with crypto before, just to steal people's money. It's just some of these scams are onboarding more people than any legitimate protocol that actually has a useful use case in the space, which is kind of sad to see. So yeah, I mean, when I think of the kind of problems in terms of how do we get from where we are now to something where crypto is even more useful to even more people, I kind of see security as being one of the biggest issues there.
That's really funny. We should think about hiring those people as marketeers for our space to help us onboard.
Honestly, yeah. Because some of these things, there's there was one I was looking at yesterday, Metaforce or something like that, that has 100,000, 150,000 wallets that have interacted with it, and they've got all of these huge Facebook pages and YouTube videos from their MLM scheme in 8 different languages to get people to, on board to this thing, and they're just stealing people's money. So yeah, honestly, I feel like some of the legitimate protocols should kind of take some of the scammy marketers and repurpose them to something that's actually useful, because it's a bit ridiculous to see sometimes.
That's amazing.
There's probably a lot to learn from them. I mean, it's also, you name a couple things that are interesting because there are places that normal Web3 people wouldn't go, like YouTube or TikTok or Facebook. Like, who uses Facebook? That's what we think. Or outside of the English speaking world, who would have thought that, people might be interested and that might be worth it. So it might pay off to look in that direction. Also, I want to let's say steer the the conversation a little bit towards like I hope like a hopeful climax or ending of this conversation. Um, I know Fiat 24, you wanted to contribute as well, and you can definitely go up next. But I hope we can talk a little bit about, okay, what are some of the successes? What are some of the wins that we're already seeing? And, maybe if they're there, why aren't they talked about yet? Because I think some of them are there, whether it's like really small, some might be like, um, you might question them, like El Salvador adopting BTC as legal tender. Okay, there, you could look at that at a lot of ways, but I think it's a win for the space. It might be a win for the people there. Uh, the Argentinian government accepted stable coins as a way to settle export payments. I think that's crazy. I think that's huge. Um, you know, uh, People paying their Netflix subscriptions, like Kofi said, with through bid refill, stuff like that. Yeah, let's talk about like some of the nice things we're seeing from this.
Yeah, I mean, I think one nice thing that we're seeing is, I think that visibility for crypto and decentralization has, increased quite a lot. And maybe one of the reasons why is also because of the banking failures, which I think, is kind of opening people's eyes, even without having this really urgent need for a digital asset because the local currency is inflated or manipulated. I think that's something positive. And I think that some of the big players, like for example Shopify or Amazon, or some of these big e-commerce giants that are starting to accept crypto payments, is also another nice move. And before, I just wanted to say to Kofi, I think it's really inspiring to hear you speak. And after this, you should talk to us because maybe we can do something together. But yeah, that was just my 2 cents, and I'll let the other speakers say something too.
Yeah, I mean, thanks for the kind words. I mean, in terms of stuff that I think is good, I mean, I'm just happy when I, see, yeah, just regular folk doing regular things with crypto. Um, like earlier this year, I have a mate who, she got married, which was great, and she isn't based in Nigeria right now in terms of living, but her wedding was in Nigeria, and for paying all of her wedding vendors and stuff, yeah, she was just sending, a guy in Nigeria USDC, and they were using the kind of the P2P networks, and she got all of her wedding vendors paid, and they had a great time. And that was awesome because anybody who's tried to send money to West Africa or somewhere else in Africa when they're not at home knows that, like, I mean, nowadays it's gotten better. There are a few services nowadays that don't have like what's the word, fully predatory fees, but it used to be the case that, yeah, most of the options for sending money home to do something were like Western Union trying to charge you 30% of what you're sending or something along those lines. And even the services that are better, it's a lot of hoops to jump through usually. It's just like they want to get all of these, identifying documents and stuff and KYC and AML. And it's just like if you're sending, some amount of money to some market woman to buy cloth or something like that. I mean, she's not going to put her passport or her passport details into some platform to get the money if she even has a passport. So yeah, I think that there's stories like that where it's just regular people just using crypto to easily send money and do stuff that might have been difficult otherwise. That's the kind of thing that I think is a win. Even more so than necessarily set foreign governments like making policy decisions that they might change tomorrow and other such things. I think a lot of the value just comes from regular people doing regular stuff, the boring things.
Yeah, here talking about that, here I shared some of the tweets that we've been sharing with the Latam community in Shapeshift, and you could see also a chart of the B2B traffic on Latin America. For example, you can see uh, the countries that are receiving money also are from other countries to Latam, because we know that we have a lot of Latinos in the diaspora, and 9% of the value received by Latin America was through cryptocurrencies. So it's very interesting to see how we are adopting slowly but surely the technology. And one of the main goals in Shapeshift is also to create a trustless transactions, because in centralized P2P platforms we have a liquidity problem as well. So this is like repeating a little bit what our systems are doing. You know, if the central system doesn't have liquidity, then we cannot just have access to resources. And this is something that really DeFi tools can also resolve.
I'm looking at the graph. It's pretty crazy. Am I getting it correctly that okay, crypto is has 28% of all web traffic? Is that correct?
Yes, and that was in in 2021. So you can imagine how our region is really in need of this type of platforms. It's not about trading and flipping JPEGs, you know, is about using it for storage of value in the day-to-day life. So I'm excited to see how it goes this year and the years to come.
I love it. That's impressive, I think. And it really, it's that's the cool thing about being in Web3 analytics. I always think like data speaks volumes. I always think. Um, Okay, those are some awesome cases. I do want to be mindful of everyone's time. We're coming up to the top of the hour. Um, I would love for everyone in the audience to give these people a follow. Um, most of them I knew already. Some of them I've learned through this space and doing my research for it. And they have very interesting perspectives and insights and good stuff to share, and that's why they were invited today. So definitely give them a follow. I'd also would like for them to sign off personally and tell people where they could find them, except their Twitter, obviously, maybe a newsletter or maybe a Discord server. Um, and also let people know what you're currently working on and what you could where they could find more information about that. I'm sure everyone would love to hear what you're working on.
Yeah, here I can go first because I'm quick and easy. My only thing is you can follow me on Twitter. I like to tweet about the intersection of Web3 and how Web2 is adopting the space, trying to share as many learnings as I can from my work with some of these Fortune 500 companies, and also hopefully inspiring people and showing them that there are a lot of jobs and opportunities in Web3. I mean, I came from like a Web2 startup background. Web3 was like getting to Web3 is the best decision I've ever made professionally. And one of my missions is to get, you know, even just 10 or 20 people like their first jobs in Web3, just like I got mine about a year and a half ago, show them those possibilities. So just follow me on Twitter. If you go in the link in my bio, I actually have a palette job board that I run called Web3 Softies. but there's specifically jobs in Web3 that do not require a technical background. Because I know obviously there's always a need for engineers, but obviously we need plenty of other people, marketers, salespeople, designers, a million other things that I'm forgetting. So yeah, check that out, and excited to see you all around Twitter. Thank you all again for hosting the space. This was fantastic. Looking forward to future ones.
Yeah, I could go next. It was great to meet you, Luca. I think these kind of conversations are necessary, and Helix, shout outs to you for setting this up. On my end, primarily Twitter is where I share my ideas and thoughts. You can follow at Surf Club Finance. We're also going to be rolling out some stuff in June, but again, we're working with regulators, so that's holding us up a bit. Again, I look forward to more of these kind of conversations. And personally, especially with AI picking up now, I think the Web3 space is going to really benefit from hyper personalization, and hopefully we can actually work out, and I think to Shapeshift's point, put out very, very useful and usable use cases as well. And I know some of the other parts are really cool, like in terms of the NFTs, but I think we can really, there's an opportunity here to impact lives and bring back innovation and passion, and let people really, really benefit from and maximize, I guess, their lives, when knowing that their value is not being um, compromised. And so, yeah, thanks everyone for the conversation. I think it was amazing. Looking forward to future versions or episodes of this.
All right. If Coffee and Shapeshift and Fiat 24 don't want outro, I'll do it for them once again. They're working on some amazing stuff, and they're either making a change and an impact in their regions or the regions where they're from, helping people out, or at least reporting on it and driving the change, and contributing to a positive outcome. So thanks everyone for being here. Also, of course, a big thank you to the audience. Love to have y'all here and be part of this conversation and part of this community. We're doing these Twitter spaces every week, so give us a follow if you'd like this, and you'll find out soon about our next one. So once again, thanks everyone. It was awesome. It was inspiring. It was heartwarming in some regards for sure. And I hope to speak to y'all soon and see y'all soon. And let's keep driving a positive impact in the world. Peace out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to all the speakers and all the audience. Appreciate you guys.